Welcome to the Resellers Niche podcast, a show for e-commerce buyers and sellers where we investigate unique categories of items being bought and sold and show how research equals knowledge equals profit. And now your hosts, Russ and Mo.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Reseller Niche podcast. We're going to mix things up yet again, kind of a little bit different. Today, we are going to put Mo on the hot seat. Mo, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How about you?
It's going well. Get a little busy getting ready for the trip, but it is going well.
Good.
I want to tell the audience this podcast is coming out of a conversation that Mo and I had on a live cast about some of the items he found garage sale, and one of them happened to be a Japanese doll. And Mo, I was asking the live broadcast how Mo packs it. For those that don't know, Mo has actually been a franchise owner of a packing and shipping company. So he's very well versed in shipping small stuff, shipping large stuff, and we're going to tap into that expertise tonight. Mo, kind of tell us how did you get into that business? First of all, a brief explanation.
I literally fell into it. I'm not a very handy person in the sense of tools and anything like that, or shipping in the sense, because back this is probably the 2005-ish, around there. And I was in IT back then, but I was a contract worker. They gave us yearly contracts. And I kind of got sick of that. So I found there was this place. It was up for sale. It was in my area, literally, I want to say like 2.5 miles, 2 miles away from where I lived. And I just kind of stuck my head in there, and the guy that was selling it was literally like having a fire sale. So that's kind of how I got in there.
Got in and go. And backstory is that's owning that business is what led you into eBay.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I think we talked about that on one of our very first episodes, introducing each other. So
yeah.
So typical day of a shipping company is you get anything and everything coming in, correct?
I've seen a lot of stuff, and ours was a low traffic store, but we visited, obviously I'm talking to a bunch of other store owners, and I've seen a lot of stuff.
Gotcha.
All kinds of interesting things. Yeah, pretty much everything you'd see go through those doors.
Got it. Let's take it through the levels.
Yeah.
Let's go from your average eBay, Amazon person, or Poshmark, the online e-commerce seller. Let's take it from what on an average day or average sales, or just the smaller stuff.
Sure.
So let's kind of just start out with your basic supplies. What's your basic way of you just ship a normal, pick an item, a video game or something like that?
Yeah, media is probably the most common thing we would ship. Back in the day, people would come in with loose stuff. They didn't really have, I'm sure UPS.com and all that was around, but they didn't really utilize it. So they would come in with, like, I'd get a stack of video games. And then back then, 9 times out of 10, they wouldn't even have a shipping label or anything. Now you'd have people semi-ready to go. Right. So literally it'd be like an open box. I've got a common thing would be and then back then it would have been probably like a PlayStation 1 or maybe a PS2 or an Xbox, most likely. And then a stack of games, and it's usually loose. So we'd usually ask them, what is this going for? And it's usually one of two reasons. It's either one, it's a birthday gift or something like that, or two, it was going on eBay. The other sites and stuff weren't really shipping back then. I don't think Amazon even did that back then. So you're like, oh, I've been told that I can send this. Here's an address. How do I get it there? And that was about it. So simplest way to do it, we basically just let them know, we'd have to bubble wrap each one of these individually. Usually it's the little cartridges, most times without the boxes. And then the console, we would, it kind of depended on what they wanted, because everything would go by the amount of insurance on the item. 9 times out of 10 people would say, wait, what is that? What does that entail? I'm not even sure if they had back now. They have $100 free insurance. UPS, FedEx, Ground
Right.
always have 100. Yeah,
eBay store owners and
actually for anybody.
or
like
for
if you
anybody now.
if you
right.
walked
Okay,
into like a UPS store right now and you said I want to ship this video game Ground, you would have $100 insurance on that.
Gotcha.
But I don't know if they had it back then though. Like 04, 05 around there.
Let me stop you right there.
Go ahead.
Take a few minutes and explain how important that insurance can be.
Extremely, extremely important.
And how cheap it can be. $1 for 100 is what I think the post office.
And I think back then it might have even been cheaper than that. It might have been like 75 cents or like 70 cents per 100. Especially back then because they didn't probably have the free $100 worth of insurance. And the USPS didn't have, I don't think it had $50 free prior. That I'm not too sure because we didn't do much post office stuff.
Right.
But yeah, so it was really, really important because like I said, 9 times out of 10, if there's any additional cost, at least where I was, they would say, no, I don't want to do that. And I'd always say, you know what, if anything happens to this, then you're going to have no recourse. There's nothing you can do. And it's literally on the paperwork that you sign. It says, unless you have properly packaged, it's like if you ever look at the slip you get at the UPS store or FedEx, it will say in there, if this is improperly packaged, this is void. The shipping is void. If this is not, if it's something fragile and it's not double boxed, it's all in the fine print.
Right.
And half of it's not even there. Half of it refers to a web page on their website. So you can't even see it. Yeah, but most people would avoid that. They'd say, no, I don't want to do that. We do our best to package things. The problem came in when they would bring us maybe 30 games and multiple consoles. We try and ask them to double box things just to separate them simply.
Right.
A lot of times they wouldn't, and they would sometimes even come in with a box and say, you know what, I don't want to pay for a box. Here's a box. And the box is literally bulging. So that's where what I would do, what became standard is we would have them say, well, we're not going to be able to have you pay for insurance because insurance would deny you if something happens.
Gotcha.
A lot of stores don't tell you that.
Good pro tip right there. Even though you're getting the insurance, you still have to abide by their guidelines to be accepted for the insurance.
I have all kinds of insurance stories.
That could be a whole other show just on what not to do, right?
Because we were literally not allowed to say that we were selling them insurance. We weren't allowed to call it insurance. We had to call it coverage or because legally, I don't know where somebody probably got sued for selling insurance when they're not insurance salesmen.
Probably
basically tacking it on as a service. So you get those items in, and the first thing you do, you do, and I always suggest this to anybody, bubble wrap is your best friend in e-commerce. Yep.
Now, do you typically shrink wrap after you bubble wrap to make it even tighter or even?
Well, what we would do is if we had multiple, it kind of depends on what the piece was. If you're talking about cartridges, bubble wrap and shrink wrap together, or we would bubble wrap and bubble wrap together. So you create a block. Another rule was if some worst case scenario, something happened, you're supposed to have 2 inches between the item and the box. So that's usually packing peanuts, bubble wrap, dunnage, paper, whatever it is. And back then they would tell you not to use paper, and they encouraged peanuts, anything that was a little bit thicker. Because paper, after a while would, crunch down, and then they could deny you insurance for that. There's a million reasons they could deny insurance. That would be one.
Gotcha. So bubble wrap and everything. All right, so let's take it to the next level.
Yeah.
So that we've talked about the normal stuff, your video games, your things like that. Let's talk about, because I've shipped quite a bit, electronics.
Yes.
VCRs, reel-to-reel tapes.
Yeah.
let's kind of give me your guidelines on shipping electronics like that.
Well, it kind of depends on what it is. VCRs are not as bad. DVD players not as bad. The main thing is you wanted to make sure that you did not somehow press on any of the buttons to open the drawer, because if you overly packed it and you were kind of pressing on that open button or that power button and you somehow open it, because sometimes they would open even without being powered up, then it would open and it could easily snap. It's just a piece of plastic. Yep. But generally VCRs, DVD players, nice square, so they're not too bad. We would generally bubble wrap peanuts and we would ask them if they want a double box. Most times they would say no. A lot of times with DVDs, and I don't know what it is with DVDs and VCRs, we would get a lot of original boxes. People seem to keep those, maybe because they're easy and small. TVs you wouldn't see as much, but I have a story about a TV anyway. But DVDs and VCRs, usually it's such a nice shape and it would fit perfectly in a box. Bubble wrap peanuts. And what we would like to do, if especially it's got a little bit weight, especially the early ones, we put styrofoam on the bottom. Get a piece of styrofoam, put them on top, put it on the bottom. That would really add a little bit of sufficient packing, like space between the item and the box again. And
it also, like on some of the items I've sold, I've tried to make it where if it's a higher priced item, I've sold some in the $200-300 range. You know, I double box and then put the styrofoam around. Double box, double styrofoam. And it didn't add any weight to it. It maybe added an extra size. But I remember one customer, one buyer sent a personal note. He said, I've never had it. He said, I deal in these and I get them all the time. He said, I've never had somebody ship it as well as you did. And so that's the pride factor.
Definitely.
I kind of look at, so double box, double box those expensive items.
Yeah.
Kind of explain what, because up until recently, when people say double box, it's so simple, but yet explain that, Bo.
Okay. Well, it's plain and simple. It's a box within a box. For example, a DVD player, you're going to bubble wrap it. You're going to add peanuts, maybe some styrofoam, and you're going to put it in a box. You're going to take that box, and usually the second box would either have just peanuts or styrofoam, and you would basically be boxing that original box. One way, a tricky way that, and maybe this is a tip for some people, I mean, it's not technically, what they call a double box sometimes in like for shipping stores is sometimes a double wall corrugated box.
Right.
So if you ever seen that, you've seen those, right?
Yeah.
That's counted as a double wall. That's counted as a double box.
Right. Because that stuff, like those Gaylords at the weigh-in pays and stuff, that stuff is almost, it's an inch thick.
You could literally take a Stanley knife to it and you could slice it and it still wouldn't cut through it.
Right.
So that, to be honest, we would use those a lot too, because it would work, most importantly, and also insurance would cover that. If we had bubble wrap peanuts, for items with glass that were more fragile, we wouldn't do that. But for stuff that needed to be double boxed but didn't necessarily need a second actual box, that's what we would use. We would use double wall corrugated boxes.
Gotcha.
But go ahead.
You brought up glass.
Yes.
Glassware. What's the one that like the Le Creuset?
Yeah.
The pots, the ceramic stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of little ceramic figurines.
Yeah.
But glass. Now I have successfully shipped some glass, and I was really. I was really nervous about it. Especially, the first time. Kind of give us the tips on shipping glass.
Main thing with glass is it kind of depends on the thickness of the glass, because I've seen every kind of glass there is. Everything from those little wine glasses that are very thin on the bottom to thick, heavy plates and bowls and things like that. Those are actually easier to ship. The heart, like, let's just take a big, heavy, like, punch bowl. That one would be super easy. I would literally fill it with peanuts, and then I'd bubble wrap the whole thing. I'd put it sitting on styrofoam, and then that styrofoam would be in a box of peanuts. Gotcha. And then that would usually be double boxed.
It's almost like, if you think about, like, when they tell about going up north in the wintertime, dress in layers.
Yep.
you're packing in layers.
Exactly.
Now,
you have to.
I did hear one, and am I right in thinking, like in glass, sometimes if it's too tight,
Yep.
you want glass to have a little bit of movement.
Yeah, one
but
of the
not
first
movement to its other.
Yeah, definitely. One of the first times I packed, I snapped the bottom. I remember I was taping, and then I taped it, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait a second, now it's in two pieces. It was within the bubble wrap, but in two pieces because I taped it way too tight. And I snapped the thing in two. So yeah, you've got to, when you see something that's very thin like that, pencil thin, you've got to really, you can take bubble wrap. There used to be this stuff, and supposedly it was good for fragile items. It was literally like a spray, and I think it was a spray. You would put it inside the box of fragile items, and it would fill it with like this kind of foam type material.
Right.
And it would take up all the space. I didn't like it because I'd seen somebody do that and break the items before. Like because it takes up all the space in the box.
Right. Yeah, I've seen those shipped. I saw a YouTube on that.
Yeah, I mean, it works for semi-fragile stuff.
Yeah,
if it's too fragile, I wouldn't use those.
Right.
But like you said, very fragile items, you literally would take foam wrap, the very thin foam wrap first, and then you would wrap that, and then you would bubble wrap it. Because bubble wrap's got a little bit of thickness to it that sometimes won't get into all the little crevices.
Right.
So little foam wrap, a little bubble wrap, and then you would kind of place that. We would have these, not styrofoam, but kind of foam little mats, basically, and place them in there if you can. And we would get, actually, the easiest way we would cheat is we'd have these pre-made ones. Basically, it's foam, and it's got like little holes cut into it.
Yeah.
And you can even get those at U-Haul, too, I think.
This is the redneck frugal mentality that I have sometimes. I have seen like foam.
Yeah.
If I have something that I'm really particular about, I have seen foam in a used furniture foam.
Yeah.
And I've taken it and cut that little thing out, through that, and styrofoam and stuff. So there's a frugal tip.
Oh, there you go. It's funny you say that because that stuff works great.
Yeah, old couch foam. Of course, you want to make sure it's not been on the side of the road and full of animals.
Yeah.
But you want to clean it. But couch foam is a great.
We used to. The funny thing is that we would keep. I remember I had this old crate that would somebody. I don't know why we even had it. It was a giant crate, and I would keep it filled with all kinds of different pieces of odd packing material, foam, styrofoam, odd sized boxes, all that kind of stuff. And I'd always reach into that. And whenever people would drop stuff off, even back then, I would they would ship something, and like a lot of times because we had mailboxes, they would rip stuff open, just leave the packing, the boxes on the ground. I'd always keep that because you never know where that little foam is needed or that little styrofoam piece that's odd shape that you need.
And the cost was great.
Yeah. Definitely.
Reuse and reuse. I've never had anybody complain. I've never bought styrofoam.
Yeah.
But I have used a lot of it. And I've never
rarely
had
bought
say,
styrofoam. Yeah. If we ever did, it would be the big pieces. I'm talking about like a 60-inch. We had like these sheets of 60-inch styrofoam.
The big sheets, right.
Yeah.
Right. So we've talked about the standard stuff, the fragiles, the little bit biggers. Let's talk about your heavy items.
Okay.
Now, and I'm specifically thinking like heavy items on eBay.
Yeah, okay.
That you typically would see, stuff that are in the 20, 30, 40-pound range.
Okay.
A lot of people I see on the Facebook boards and messages and stuff, a lot of people are afraid of heavy stuff.
I mean, I'd be afraid of heavy stuff if you're not going to pack it properly. Then, yeah, they should definitely be afraid. Because I remember I had this guy that came in and he had it pre-packed. It was a TV and it was in the original box, but all the stuffing was taken out, all the styrofoam, all that was out. And he basically stuffed it with clothing, I think. And I remember he was taping it up and I said, do you need help with that? He's all, no, I'm good to go. I just need the shipping only. And I said, and he asked to get insurance on it. And I said, I can't do that because I'd be taking your money for no good. Because I even told him point blank, that's going to break. It was a TV that was about an inch around the entire thing between the TV and the box. I don't think the box was the original box for that TV.
Crammed it in the box, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he crammed it in there, and then it just it came back in pieces because it was returned. I think it was an eBay shipment. It got returned to us.
Oh, he did not listen to your advice.
No. Didn't get insurance.
And it came back in pieces.
Yep. I told him to get a bigger box. He didn't want to do that because they have oversizes. So it was one of those square, like an older TV. This is probably like 10, 12 years ago. And then if he had gone up like an inch or two, would have gone up, $10, $15 or something like that. He didn't want to do that. He didn't. And then he said, "Oh, can I get insurance?" I said, I can charge you for insurance. You're not going to get your money back because they research every claim. I mean, their job is not to pay you, as bad as that sounds, but I mean,
right.
That's their job, and they would be right in this case because they would just open up the box and see nothing in there. He shipped it. He said, "Oh, I didn't get much for it." It came back, and he had to come back and pick up a box full of glass and plastic.
Right. So didn't listen.
Yep.
What's the heaviest thing you've shipped on your personal eBay? Have you ever shipped the heavy
on my
stuff?
Personal eBay?
Yeah.
I don't really ship very heavy. I mean, maybe 10, 15 pounds. Not very heavy.
Gotcha.
Out of the store, I've shipped. I
Right.
did ship very heavy items, but
it made me think real quick when you said oversized. I had some vintage lawn chairs.
okay.
And I ended up selling them local, but the shipping on those vintage lawn chairs, there was no weight to them at all. They were aluminum. They were, compared to, I've shipped stuff 40, 50 pounds. These lawn chairs, because of the size, were like $40 shipping. It was just that size. It's the oversized. So keep that in mind as you that different level as you learn, as people learn shipping.
Oh, yeah. You're totally right about that, because what they would always tell us is that obviously they're going to get their money somehow. So if it's a giant box of feathers, it's going to go by dimensional weight. Right. If it's a tiny box of lead, it's going to go by the weight of the actual item. Gotcha.
So let's take it up a notch. The big stuff, the crate. A lot of people, myself included, have not really tapped into an area that if you were to use freight shipping.
Okay.
And there are freight options through your normal shippers.
Yeah.
You can also get truck freight, the LTL, the less than load freights and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you did a lot of freight too. You were telling me.
I mean, even out of a tiny little place we had, we did a lot of shipping. We did, let me see here. I'm trying to think of the biggest things that we did. I'll try and think of the coolest. I'm not sure if the heaviest one that I can think of that was literally sitting in the front of the store was this pizza oven. It was in 4 pieces. Each piece must have been, I don't know,
a commercial
pizza oven. 300 to 400 pounds. When they brought it in, we had the double doors. So they brought it in and they had to bring it in. Basically, we didn't have a forklift. So they dropped it off, and it was the back of, there was a lift gated truck. And then we just took it basically piece by piece on a pallet jack and brought them in. And then they had an electric pallet jack so they could stack them, because these things couldn't be moved. And we stacked them on top of a pallet. And then this is one of the first crates I made. I basically built a crate around it, which this is not the way you're supposed to build a crate at all. It was basically because they didn't want to crate the item, but if I hadn't have at least supported it, it would have toppled, and that would have killed somebody. I mean,
gotcha. Yeah.
So we basically just needed to get it all in one spot so they could, the freight company could pick it up.
Now, we say building a crate. That's plywood, 2x4s.
Yep.
Yeah, you're actually building a shipping crate.
Yes.
What we used to call overseas crate in the warehouse industry. So you screwed it in, nailed it in, built that thing up, and got it.
Yeah.
What would something like that, a pizza oven, 300-400 pounds, what would something like that you think would be shipped, would cost shipped today?
If you're talking about going, say, to the East Coast, something that's that heavy, I mean,
Yeah, let's do West Coast, East Coast, all
West
the way
Coast,
across
East
the country.
Coast. I mean, you could probably get, I mean, if you had the time to shop around, you could get it under $500 cost. If you went in, if you just walked into like UPS store, I don't know if they do freight or not, and then just asked them, they would probably double that up. I'm guessing their cost would be $300 to $500. And they would probably charge you close to $1,000, $1,200, something like that, if you're going domestic.
That's a good point you brought up, and is shopping for that freight. You know, if you think about trucks going back and forth across the country, you know, the trucks are constantly moving.
Yeah.
There's, you know, 1,000 trucks, and there's companies out there, and you can find them on Google. You can find them local. You can even call anywhere in the country and say, hey, if you have a truck, or they have freight forwarding companies, and there's guys that there's people that their job is nothing but to find freight to fill that truck. And come in. So keep, you know, as you do that, they're out there, and they're very easy to find and get bids. And
a couple tips for if you're looking at freight. The things that will save you money are if you make the job easier for the freight company, i.e. if you know, obviously your house is probably not going to have a dock.
Right.
So if you can have your item, if it has to be on a pallet, which is generally stuff that's over, you know, 150 pounds or so, because I think 150 pounds is the ground maximum for UPS and FedEx. So if it has to be picked up, try and have it picked up at a business that has a dock that obviously lets you use that, because then that means they don't need a lift gate on their truck when they pick it up. Lift gate fees are not cheap. You can double your shipping cost by having to pay lift gate
having
fees.
the lift gate.
Yeah, they charge you. Yeah.
Explain the difference. Two things to explain. Like getting a truck into your neighborhood, and then the lift gate versus the. Yeah. So if it's residential, you're 9 times out of 10 they're going to charge you a lift gate fee, because you're not going to have a dock most likely, unless you're maybe in a rural area or something like that. So they're going to charge you a residential fee sometimes on top of that. So there's a couple extra fees you're going to pay just for having people pick up at your house. Gotcha. But you can negotiate those down if you do more than one freight shipment. If you go directly to the freight company and say, you know what, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and then they'll probably ask you, okay, how much you can do in a year, how much you can do per month, and then they can take those fees away if you can prove that, you know, you're going to do X amount of shipping. Right. For your normal person that's doing one item and it's big, they're not going to work with you too much.
No, most likely not. I mean,
you're going to do, but there's, you know, this is something you and I have spoke about, that the larger stuff is an untapped market in eBay. Because people are concerned that, well, I have to. So you have to build a pallet. So you've got, you know, some extra cost involved there that you've got to build into your shipping. And then you'd have to have a place to put it, or, you know.
I very rarely ever built pallets.
I'm sorry. A shipping crate. You know,
So
you got to build a crate.
Even crates, you can do kind of pseudo crates. If you don't want to build a crate, you can take a pallet and just kind of build around depending on what you have. If you have the time, you're doing it at home. It's not a professional thing you're doing for someone.
Because you said at one time you shipped a motorcycle, correct?
Yes. Yep.
What kind of motorcycle was that?
Wow. This was going to Ireland, if I remember correctly. It was not a Harley. It was
a big touring type bike.
Yeah.
It wasn't a Japanese.
No, it was a big heavy sucker. Bike. Yeah. Gotcha. And then I remember they left us the keys. I didn't write it, but I literally just pushed it in through, we literally went with a truck we didn't even have a lift gate. We just had a ramp. We rolled it up into the back and we strapped it down into the back of a truck. And then we brought it back, and then we had the crate waiting ready for it. Because generally what we would do is whatever it was, we'd have the rough dimensions and we'd build half the crate or half the pallet.
Gotcha.
So you literally would just bring it, put it on top, and finish whatever you're doing. Right. It's just easier.
How much bubble wrap did you use on that?
Oh wow, a lot. to be honest, the bubble wrap was there for like the glass and stuff. There was like nothing on the inside. It's kind of a hollow crate.
You strap those down.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But you know, because there's a lot of stuff we sell that is told to sell local. And
Yeah.
a motorcycle, you would think I could only sell that local.
That's went to
But
Dublin.
it went to Dublin. So you think about like adding that to your repertoire of motorcycles, flipping motorcycles on eBay. There's already a huge business flipping cars on eBay.
Yep.
There's eBay Motors is a huge part of it.
Oh yeah. And cars is even easier because you wouldn't even have to do the packaging.
No, they come and get it.
Exactly.
They'll drive it up on the transporter.
Yeah. I think with cars, all you have to do is like they have requirements about like you have to have the car empty and then like
has to be running. Yeah. So it can drive up on. I had a '69 Lincoln Continental that I had in St. Louis that I had shipped down to Florida, and it was about $500 for that. Yeah.
The last time I did one, it wasn't much more than that. I think we went domestically. We shipped it was like a Corolla or something. It went to Florida actually. It was like $750, something like that.
And that's added, of course, that the end user would pay that in my mind.
Yeah.
Or the user's going to pay, or the buyer's going to pay shipping somehow on that, whether through the price of the car or through, you've got to add that cost in there. So don't be afraid of those large items.
No, not at all.
And if nothing else, there's always Frankenbox.
That's a lot of times what we do for the strange kind of odd size stuff. You have to Frankenbox. Everyone does it, even the big companies. I mean, we picked up all kinds of interesting items before. So, I mean, half the time you don't know because of the accessories and the stuff that comes with it too.
Gotcha. The first time you went, I'm going to ask it because this happened to me. The first time I went and cut down a box.
Yeah.
I went, this is easy.
Yeah.
Why? Because when you realize it, you can even reshape boxes. You can, standard boxes, just cut them one way, and then they have the box resizers, which are great for Amazon because you want to have that box at the top. You don't want to have much dunnage in your Amazon.
Oh yeah, space is your enemy. I mean, because nowadays, if you go to a FedEx store, and this happened to me like a couple weeks back, I was shipping a Barbie doll or something. It was like a doll. But the inside of the original packaging, it moves around a little bit. So they take the box, they shake it, and then they say, well, we can't ship this because it's moving. And I was trying to explain to them, the inside of it is the issue. It's basically snug against the box on the inside. And I said, sorry, $5 and we can redo it, or you can take it back.
Yeah, you got it. So, sorry about that one. And so, keep in mind that there's always a way to ship anything.
Yeah.
Now, I do a lot of things. I bubble wrap and typically shrink wrap my items because I don't want, if they go in a box, I always try to make sure there's some type of cover that if that box gets wet. And one of the things that really I like to make sure I stress on mine and stuff is that when they open that item, I want the customer to look like I cared about their item because the minute they purchase it, it's their item.
That's true.
And, I do ship things that most people, you can ship things in poly bags if it's covered. I've shipped clock radios in poly bags, but they're wrapped real well and covered up and, I've never had a complaint. What are some of the things that you think that people do that they can step up on and make a better customer service experience?
I would say the inside of the box, I think, maybe going back to what you just said, a lot of times people will take a box and say it's, a 12 by 12 box, and their item is tiny. It's like, an action figure. It doesn't, obviously that's way too big of a box, but they'll say, well, you know what am I going to do? It's the only box I have. And they'll just kind of leave it, or they'll throw a little paper in it. Like you said, you cut that thing down, make it as appropriate for the item you're sending as possible. I'm not saying cut it all the way down so that the item's sticking out. So
don't got this Barbie doll with a foot sticking out.
Exactly. Yeah.
got the hair sticking out so you can see. But yeah, it's good. Cool. Anything else, Mo, you'd like to add?
I would say there's one thing that's always, and this is a thing that came out about 2 or 3 years ago at Christmas. Both UPS and FedEx around, I think it's all year round now. They don't want you putting any kind of wrapping paper or, people use that brown paper around boxes anymore, because what happens, what they say is, especially in bad weather, people slap the labels on top of those things. The paper comes off, there goes the label, and now you've got an unidentifiable box.
Right. Good point. If on your expensive items, I've always slapped not a label, but just the address inside the item.
Yeah.
Because that way, if they have to get into it, they've done that right.
And
and that brown paper too. I think somebody said, I read one report where they said, if you want your packages opened, wrap them in brown paper. Yeah. Because they're going to look. They're going to see what for some reason.
And then I guess the second thing I would say is anything we would get towards the end, we would do a lot of this. We would take a lot of pictures of the items. And what we would do is package it 3/4 of the way so the box is open and you can still see the item and the packing material, and take a picture of it like that.
Gotcha.
Because a lot of times claims will happen, and the first thing they'll ask for is a picture, and as many pictures as possible of the item, the packaging. Sometimes they'll actually ask for the packaging. Because especially if it's a high, if you're asking for thousands of dollars or something,
right? Yeah,
they're going to ask you for all the details possible. So if you could show them that, hey, I packaged this properly. This is, here's the bubble wrap, here's the peanuts, here's the whatever.
They get a picture of that set. They get a little satisfaction. Some what's that?
Yep.
Less stress. They get a little bit, more comfortable with purchasing from you.
Exactly.
Okay, this guy knows what he's doing, how to ship. So.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, Mo, I sure appreciate you letting me interview you on this. This is shipping is one of those topics not talked about too much, especially in depth.
Yeah.
But it can be very beneficial to your business, and it can be also very disastrous for your business.
It's one of those things we all need, and
I mean, it's two things you need with this business is internet and shipping.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the major key parts of the business. So
exactly.
Well, good. I want to thank everybody for listening to today's podcast. Please come back, listen to our other episodes. If you are listening through YouTube, like and share, and please subscribe. Also, go to our Facebook page. The link is in YouTube, and because we have some really neat guests coming up, some just powerful people that have been around in the industry that just really exciting. I don't want to say who we booked, but it's going to be a really just a full of pro tips. So, Mo, thank you very much. I want you to have a good rest of the day.
You too. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Reseller Niche podcast. Show notes and social media links are located at resellernniche.com. Please like and subscribe to us on iTunes.